Good afternoon, everybody. The meeting of the Faculty Senate will come to order. Please make sure your cell phones are set to silent mode. Before we begin taking roll from the divisional campuses, I believe we're, just to let you know that we are using a new setup here. So when matters are being discussed, you will be displayed here in Morgantown on a split screen. So when we ask for questions, please feel free at that point in time to chime in, and if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them. Okay? So I'll now take the roll. Potomac State, how many are present?
One present. Gerald Wilcox.
Do we? Potomac State, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
They can hear you. We can't hear you, unfortunately. So.
One present.
Is he giving hand signals? I can't see from. There's one of them. Okay, we'll take one from Potomac State. Thank you. So hopefully we can get this sorted out as the meeting continues. And then at WVU Tech, how many are present?
We have 3 present.
Maybe indicate by a show of digits. 3? Okay.
Yeah.
Is that 3? I can't see. Okay, we'll take it as 3 from Tech. Thank you very much. Okay, so I can see this is going to be a long meeting. We do have a quorum for today. So first on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the October 5th Senate meeting. These were distributed with the agenda last week, so are there any corrections to the minutes for the October 5th meeting? And Potomac State and WVU Tech, if you have objections, questions, or corrections, maybe you can wave your arms around. Seeing no arm waving, I'm going to assume that everything is okay and that there are no objections, so the minutes stand approved as written. Thank you very much. So next on the agenda is Dr. Gordon Gee, who will give us the President's report. Thank you.
I must say, Mr. Chairman, this is the University President's idea of a great faculty meeting. No one can talk. I know. Now, if the microphones go off here, then the world will have been complete. But anyway, it's wonderful to be with you today, and thank you very much. I just want to say that Richard and Bob, who represent the university on our board of trustees, we just had a trustee meeting, and you should know that they are highly respected and highly valued and do really a terrific job. And so I just want to acknowledge that our trustees have great confidence in the faculty and staff leadership that sits on the board. As you know, let me talk about the challenging thing for the moment. As you know, our state is not doing well economically at the moment. We went into a recession later than most, and we have come out of it not at all at the moment in many ways. And of course, much of the challenge has to do with coal, which is, even though I think we're producing about 100 or 110 million tons a year, the severance tax is very important to support of the government, state government, and they estimate that they're going to be down between $250 to $300 million. And so they did impose a 4% budget reduction on us. Let me just say, by the way, that we're not the only ones that is having this happen. Almost all of the energy states have considerable challenges, Oklahoma, Texas, etc. And so misery does not love company, but nonetheless we do have some company out there. But our position is a very simple one. First of all, and Narvel is here, I have said on occasion that that one of the blessings of having had lessening state support over the last few years is the fact that when there's a budget reduction, it is much less of an impact on us. We always are impacted, but the fact that it is a lesser impact on us. The other thing is the fact that over the last 18 to 20 months, we have been planning on a number of entrepreneurial activities, a number of activities in order to be able to continue to generate resources. As many of you know, I've said over a period of time that the universities can no longer rely on the normal support mechanisms, on state support, on fees, and on tuition. We need to come up with new models, and that's precisely what we're doing. I think as a sign to all of you that we intend on being very aggressive is the fact that most times when a governor announces a budget reduction, the first thing you do is say, well, we will decrease some of our activities, we won't give pay raises, a variety of other things. We did, and we will continue to do so as much as we possibly can. I think that if I were a member of this faculty, I would take that as a sign that the university believes very strongly in its future and our ability to be able to be competitive. But nonetheless, we need to understand that in today's environment that it is not as healthy as we'd like to have it. On the other hand, I think that as we go into the legislative session, we will make the case that the support of this university should be the priority of the state. Higher education is, and particularly our university, is the economic generator in this state. And secondly of all, that state government, like universities, need to make decisions of closing some things and opening some things, and not treating everyone like McDonald's hamburgers the same. And so we will certainly make that case. But I have every expectation that we will continue to get a much stronger consensus out of the state legislature to give us more power to control our own agenda. And that, in the end, is what we want to have. We want to have the ability to be able to be more in control of ourselves. We belong to the people of West Virginia. 1.8 million of them have a stake in this institution, but also we have to have much greater flexibility in order to be able to meet the demands of the institution as we grow and as we do a number of other things. Also, out of the Friday Board of Governors meeting, in addition to talking about the budget, the continuing support for Montgomery and for moving West Virginia Tech is very apparent from our board and from many others, and that process continues. I would just say something that I was most pleased about, and that is the fact that our academic, that this class that we have just brought in to the university, undergraduate, is the highest is the highest achieving academic class in the history of the institution. We find across the 24 ACT mark and which is considerable. There are very few institutions, public universities in this country, that have that quality of a profile, and our intent is to move up. We also increased the number of honor students by about 1/3, so we're up well over 700, and our goal is, of course, to be at 1,000 by next year. And then we have 4 projects. Many of you have read about them through our Center for Big Ideas going on around the state. We've had a lot of success with our project at Harper's Ferry. Again, recognizing that about 1/3 of that historic district burned down. I talked to their mayor. We sent over your faculty colleagues from law, from business, from engineering, obviously our colleagues from extension, and they really have worked very hard. We're rebuilding that, but more importantly, we're creating an opportunity for us to use a teaching learning moment for ourselves and for our students. We're focusing, if you read the Charleston Gazette, you saw on the front page a significant focus we have on the west side of Charleston, an area that has for many years been neglected, and we think that it's an area of great importance to this state. So we are focusing there. The other 2 areas, Weirton in the northern panhandle. As we well know, Weirton still went out of business some time ago, and the northern panhandle has significant opportunities, but it also has significant challenges, and we are focusing in that community. And then the final is Montgomery itself. We have no intent on engaging in a strategy of abandonment anywhere, so we're not abandoning one city in order to bring economic life to another. We intend on being very engaged in both of those cities, and we will continue to do so. We have new faces at the university. Sean Frisbee is our new Alumni Association the director. He is also a vice president of the university, and in the consensus is bring the Alumni Association, the foundation, University Hospital is much more closely aligned with the institution. Sean is a graduate of this university, of our College of Engineering. Distinguished graduate university. We received a distinguished alumnus award from the College of Engineering. Had a very important career in the Air Force. His final billet as an Air Force in the Air Force was at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, where he directed the development and the mechanical activities of the F-22 stealth bomber, which is, of course, a $68 billion business. It's a significant effort, and he is here on board. Stacy Vandervelde is Director of Student Conduct. We know that student conduct is a significant issue for us, as it is on all institutions, but we wanted to get someone very good. She led that effort at the University of Michigan, and Roy Baker is our new Associate Dean of Students and Director of Greek Life, who was the director at Penn State University. Good institutions with great programs, and these folks will come and join us. As you read, we are in the process of looking very carefully at a new aquatic and track complex at Milan Park. The reason I want to talk about that, for example, as an example of city-university cooperation, the more that we can have partnerships, the better we are. We want to build a new aquatic center for our students and for our diving and swimming program, and the city can benefit greatly from that as well, and so that kind of collaboration worked very well. As you know, our baseball stadium was named the #1 new baseball stadium in the country, and so we feel that kind of relationship is very positive. I would just note that Claire Beth Novotny will travel to Chicago later this month to be interviewed as a Rhodes Scholar finalist. We hope she does very well. We have not had one for a while. We've had 24 in the history of the institution, among the best among public universities, and we want to get back into that business. She's a foundation scholar and an honors college student, and then we'll have a veterans breakfast on Wednesday. We hope many of you can attend. Saying that, I'm open for any questions that any of you may have. Mark, please. Of course. Sorry. He came in late. I was afraid that I was going to
I know. You know, I ran here just specifically to be right here and to ask you a question. Mark Brzaitis, Department of English. I'm guessing that the best kind of crisis is either one that doesn't happen or one that leads to a positive change. So I'm curious about your response to what's going on at the University of Missouri. And in our own case, whether those kind of crises can be anticipated and cut off, or whether we just play them out and try to make the best of them, not just what the kind of that they're experiencing, but say the kind of crises that universities have faced in their athletic departments and elsewhere.
Let me just explain to everyone, the president of the University of Missouri system resigned today. By the way, this thing just exploded. I will tell you very honestly, it was not even on anyone's radar screen until about 3 or 4 or 5 days ago, and all of a sudden it popped up where they had a series of events at the University of Missouri which were racially motivated, and I think the university is very passive in its response. In fact, I saw one response where they said, well, to a group of students, we'll take a look at the university's charter on the second paragraph, 1.0. My experience is this: when we have a crisis at the institution, however we want to define it, I think it's the institutional responsibility, and starting with the president, to be very proactive, addressing it, making sure you may not give the answer that people want, but people need to understand that you understand it, you care, and you're valued, and that we're trying to do everything we possibly can to address those issues. I can't comment on this one too much because I am totally unfamiliar with it, other than the fact I did talk to the Chronicle of Higher Education a few minutes ago, who asked me what I thought, and I think that it was one of those things where they were where they were too passive. I've always believed, and I believe that this is an institution that does believe that we need to be very active and very proactive. I'll give you an example of that. I think that one of the really wise things we did is after the Baylor after the Baylor riot, if I can call it that, last year. But we didn't wait, we didn't ask the committee, we didn't do anything. We expelled some students. We asked the students to take responsibility for their actions. They started the Respectful Mountaineer program, which I think was a real turning point in terms of a lot of our student culture. And that, by the way, was done because we were all on the same side, but we did it that night. We didn't wait until the next morning. We didn't wait for any kind of indication of what the fallout was. So I would hope that our faculty would continue to be engaged on the aggressive response side, but also that we'd make certain that we as a university administration with you are engaged in being very proactive on those issues. Now, going back to the longer term issue, I think that Black Lives Matter. I think that the issues of racial inequality, I think the issues surrounding the cost of education, higher education, I think that the diminishing state support, I think all of those create a crucible of a lot of issues out there which can rear up at any moment. It's a fairly volatile time to be on a university campus because of the fact that things can roar very fast. I was asked by the Chronicle they said they couldn't remember when the university president had resigned because of these kind of protests, and I said, well, I can remember at Columbia when I was there. Grayson Kirk resigned, and it wasn't my fault, but he did. But nonetheless, so I've seen those kind of things. But I appreciate the question. Thank you, Mark.
Good afternoon. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Statistics, Eberly College. My name is Ken Ryan. President Gee, you've been known to say we must move from nonsense to common sense. It's common sense, at least to me, that courses should be taught by experts in the field. I'd like to think my journal articles, grant proposals are well written, but I have absolutely no desire to teach a writing course. I think it's safe to just let the English department handle that one. This coming spring, the Industrial Engineering Department is going to teach a course in statistics for undergraduates out of the same book covering the same chapters as the course I'm going to teach in the Department of Statistics. My course is expected to have 10 students, theirs 100. The real kicker here is that their course is going to be taught by a master's student. And attempts to cross-list their course with ours were essentially ignored. And I quote an email response from their chair. Industrial engineering faculty expressed reservations about losing the student credit hours to the Department of Statistics. As a second example of course redundancy, later in this very meeting, you're likely to hear the need for a new psychology course, which should essentially be titled Introductory Statistics for Psychology. To flip your quote around, President Gee, these are situations where WVU is moving from common sense towards nonsense. So I ask you, does removing redundant coursework fit under the umbrella of the bureaucracy busters? If not, how might one WVU resolve these types of issues? Because as you've said, it is imperative that we begin to think, speak, and act as one.
You know, first of all, I appreciate the question, and let me say that I do believe that one of the issues, as we take a look at the budgetary challenges we face, we've got to become very aware that we no longer can engage in everyone duplicating everything, and I think that this may be an example. Now, I don't know the specific example, and I don't know why it is, so I don't want to pile on. But the answer, the macro answer is absolutely. I think that if there are reasons for, if there are logical reasons to have those two courses taught, then we have to understand it. If not, then we have to eliminate those kinds of duplications, because if we don't, we are going to expend the breadth of our faculty across the length of the institution in ways that is not very healthy. So I would hope, and you know, CB, you're here. We'll have someone address that. But as to the general issue, do we need to stop duplication? Do we need to stop this kind of bureaucratic response? Do we need to get rid of the silos? I'll tell you again. You know, my vision of a university is, you know, if I were king for a day, and everyone has heard me say this, I would do away with departments and colleges and create centers and institutes and working groups, because I think that we have a tyranny of the silos that we have to break down in order to be able to truly be one institution that has worth to everyone. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Questions?
not on that topic, but on this other topic of being proactive in responding to issues and concerns of the university. I know our university safety has created a wonderful program dealing with an active shooter, and given our current culture and just the recent shootings last week, is there a move to requiring that? Because I know there was some in-person training that was done last year that was announced. There's also training that's available on the web. I just went through that training myself, which is extremely helpful and taught me things that I did not know. So I wanted to know if there was a move towards requiring that for all faculty and also all students.
First of all, our chair just told me that, being very proactive as he is, that we've got our police chief coming in to address that issue directly. I think it's at the next meeting. Saying that, Narvel, where are we in that effort? You know, let me just say, this is a very troubling issue for me. We all know that this is increasingly apparent on college campuses of targeting. I will tell you what is very troubling to me is what my colleagues at Texas and other places are dealing with right now, which is the concealed gun issue on a campus. And that scares the hell out of me, if you want to know the truth. And so we do need to be as active as we possibly can. Narvel, where are we on that? And you all know Narvel Weiss, okay? Why don't you use a microphone here or something?
Thank you. Well, I mean, I think we've been actively engaged in planning for a disaster on campus probably for about 5 years. You know, Bobby Roberts, our Director of Public Safety, has been one of the leading advocates in the Morgantown area for building partnerships with the county, the city, the emergency response groups, if and when there is an active shooter on campus. You know, I'd like to think that we're prepared, but you know, it's one of those scenarios that we won't know how people are going to react or how we're going to deal with it until we actually get into the scenario. But I think we have a very well thought out training program. You know, it really does center around people taking action if they get in that kind of situation as compared to being passive. And Bobby goes through a whole training program that addresses that. Whether or not we get to the point where we get into a mandatory training program, I guess we can talk about that. I'm not real big on mandatory training, as the president knows, but I think if there's value in training, people will go and engage and participate in those kind of training programs. So I look forward to Bobby coming and providing more detailed information about our program. But I feel pretty good about our ability to respond to an active shooter.
You know, just as a coda on that, I know that several people in my office, Jennifer Fisher particularly, has participated in a number of what we call tabletops, which are crisis management issues. A number of folks around the institution have been going through all those scenarios, and I was very impressed about how prepared we are for those kind of incidents. But nonetheless, I think we hope it never happens. If it does, I hope that we have done all necessary in order to be able to respond. One last question, then I'm going to have to let you guys run.
Hi, Brett McCusker, Geology, Geography.
Run one of the two. There we go. Go ahead.
Sorry if I missed this. Will WVU be collecting out of paychecks the Morgantown City user fee, or is there any discussion of that?
Okay. There you are. Grab the microphone again.
I think the simple answer to your question is yes. We will be collecting the $3 per pay period out of your paycheck, and we will be remitting those funds to the city of Morgantown. It's $3 per week.
And that is a user fee.
It's a user fee, and I guess I should. Well, I think I know what the city is going to use the money for. It's my understanding they're going to hire additional police officers, as well as improve the roads, and so there'll be paving, sidewalks, and other kind of infrastructure improvements.
Great.
Does this cover supplemental pay as well, like summer salary?
It's a per week pay. It's a per week pay.
But if you're on a 9-month salary, then you have supplemental pay in the summer.
Every time you get a paycheck.
You're going to ask him another question.
It's a colleague
reminding me to finish the answer, the question, which is, it's very regressive for graduate students and some of the staff, so we just would like to discuss it.
Yeah, we know that. I mean, this was not our gig, and we're still trying to figure out how we deal with it. On the one hand, we complain about the roads and all the other kinds of things, and then we want to make certain that we have an appropriate response. But this one kind of slipped up on everyone, I think, as a matter of fact.
And I agree, it's very regressive. You literally could work 1 hour and have to pay the $3 fee in a week, and it just, hopefully there'll be some tweaking that'll take place over time with the actual user fee, would be my hope.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's my report.
Thank you, sir. Okay, thank you, President Gee. Next on the agenda is the Provost report that will be given by Dr. C.B. Wilson, because Provost Joyce McConnell is out of town and sends her apologies.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and the remarks today will reflect some of the remarks that the Provost made at the Board of Governors meeting last week. First of all, some things that relate to the 2014-15 compact. Since the fall of 2012, there have been an average of 575 high school students enrolled in WVU coursework each semester, with an average matriculation rate of 51%. 6 additional high school partnerships were established in 2014 to bring the total number to 32 across the state of West Virginia. The Osher Scholarship Grant funded the 3rd year of the Osher Reentry Scholarship Program to aid undergraduate students aged 25 to 50 years to secure an undergraduate degree at WVU. In September of 2014, the Osher Foundation permanently funded the scholarship program with a $1 million endowment grant. Relating to student success, WVU has purchased a new, highly sophisticated tracking system called the Student Success Collaborative, which includes an alert system as well as individualized predictive models. This system was piloted in the summer of 2015 with a staff member partly funded via a grant from the Gates Foundation. New student orientation was restructured this year to include an academic session prior to the advising and registration sessions in the afternoon. The academic session allows for discussion of the importance and the role of a plan of study. Relating to impact, WVU reports approximately 1,888 peer-reviewed publications by faculty annually. This number does not include other scholarships such as books, conference presentations, and proceedings, exhibitions, and so on. In 2014, the WVU Extension faculty and staff had 624,111 direct contacts with youth and adults and 1,982,674 total contacts, direct and indirect. The Financial Aid Office has created an outreach and communication unit to assist with default prevention. This unit will work with students to make informed financial decisions while in or out of school, which will lead students to better financial health and the ability to repay good debt and avoid bad debt. Some of the compact highlights for Potomac State College. Concerning access, Potomac State College developed 2 articulation agreements with area high schools, submitted 1 for WVU, and submitted 3 new degree programs for approval. In terms of student success, the college developed and piloted the Catamount Success Academy for out-of-state first-time students with low high school grade point averages. Academy students were assigned faculty and staff mentors, enrolled in 4 cohort courses, and required to attend math and English tutoring sessions. Retention rates for the Academy cohort and comparison groups were 59% and 48% respectively. Relating to impact, as part of a financial wellness initiative, new and transfer students are required to take EverFi's online financial education course as part of their WVU E101 course. Student Life collaborated with WVU on the EverFi contract. And in 2014-15, Potomac State College staff conducted FAFSA, that relates to financial aid applications workshops in 11 schools. Some of the compact highlights for West Virginia University Tech. WVU Tech has focused on the statewide need of increasing the number of people with a post-secondary degree to fill health sciences career vacancies by creating online health services related areas of emphasis in the RBA program. In terms of success, WVU Tech has improved the understanding and enhanced the development of online courses among the faculty by providing opportunities to become Quality Matters certified. As of fall 2015, 39% of the faculty are Quality Matters nationally certified. In the context of impact, to provide a richer understanding of the research interests of the WVU Tech faculty, a faculty research interest survey was developed and delivered. With a 77% response rate, the survey provided a strong interest among the faculty for multidisciplinary collaborative research projects. In some comments about student success, The Economist publication recently did their own ranking of colleges and universities based on alumni earnings versus expectations, measuring the qualifications and demographics of students upon entering college against those student salaries 10 years later. WVU ranked 79th out of 1,275. Some of you know that we've appointed Joe Seaman as the Interim Executive Director of Academic Advising and Student Success under Sude Perutz. Retention is up on both main campus and at WVU Tech, 2% and 3.9% respectively. The Office of Undergraduate Research is fully operational. Regarding some of the administrative searches that are underway, 4 candidates for the position of Dean of the Eberly College of Arts and Sciences came to campus last month. These were very impressive candidates. The provost has received the screening committee's report, and she is confident that we will have a new dean of the Eberly College named before the end of the calendar year. The university is being very proactive in soliciting nominations for the next dean of the College of Business and Economics. Chair of that committee, Greg Bowman, and the provost have both contacted various campus constituencies. Dean Bowman even sent an email to every college visiting committee last week, and work has been going on very closely with Greenwood Asher to bring those nominations to fruition. The Office of the Vice President for Research is hiring an Associate Vice President for Research and Development. The Office of Enrollment Management is hiring an Executive Director of Recruitment. Sude Perutz in Undergraduate Education and Academic Innovation has started a search for the Dean of WVU Online, Continuing, and Professional Education. Also want to make note that both the Reed College of Media and the Statler College had accreditation teams on campus last month, and although the final reports are not in, the visits apparently went very well in both cases. In the context of facilities, the EVANSDALE Crossing Building, housing integrated student services, an upscale food court, and soon the Media Innovation Center is open for business. I also note that at Potomac State College, the college recently closed on a real estate transaction that will have a transformational impact on their agriculture and forestry program. The gift includes a 364-acre farm valued at $1.315 million and a monetary donation of $2.89 million that will create 3 endowments: Farm Operations Endowment, Student Scholarship Endowment, Faculty and Student Development Endowment. Potomac State also received $1.1 million for the sale of their 380-acre Lower Farm. All of this revenue will be put back into the agricultural program for farm enhancements and academic program support. The total value of this deal was over $5 million. And those are my remarks, so I'll be happy to take any questions or try to answer them if you have them. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, CB. And so next on the agenda, I'd like to invite Narvel Weiss, the Vice President for Administration of Finance, and he's going to give us an update on the construction projects and facility planning that's going on campus and that's been recently completed. Narvel.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And Richard, thank you for the invitation. Are we here? Good. Okay, we're good. All right. So what I wanted to start out with today was to talk a little bit about the facility master plan that was developed in 2011. And then I'm going to also spend a little time on the facilities master plan as it related to student housing. And then I'd like to sort of give you a quick update in terms of progress to date to implement the master plan. So in 2011, with great anticipation and support from the provost and the vice president for student life and lots of other individuals around the campus, we developed a facilities master plan that was adopted by our board. Inside that facilities master plan was the Evansdale campus redevelopment. And one of the primary objectives with the Evansdale campus plan was that we needed additional space for research. We needed a new ag building. We needed a new home for student health. Student health was located at that time in the basement of the hospital, and even with the red and the green, the blue lines, no one could find the clinic. And if you actually got out of the clinic, I'm not sure you ever left the building, and so it was a horrible situation. CPAS was out of space at the Coliseum and was hindering its ability to grow. We needed a museum. We have amazing art pieces, and so we needed to have a home to display those various pieces. We had a law school that was outdated, and so instead of building an entire new building, which would have been somewhere between 70 and 100 million, we decided to add on an addition as well as renovate the existing law school. We also needed some additional parking on the Evansdale campus, believe it or not. That's pretty shocking, I'm sure, to most of you. And we needed to deal with some road issues, and we needed to deal with signage. We also had almost no food options on the Evansdale campus. We had some small venues inside the engineering building, and there clearly was towers. But we needed a place for students to go hang out, have some fun, relax, and also get some great food. We also had a need on campus to consolidate student accounts, the financial aid office, and the registrar office. And so prior to this, we would have students that would get bounced all over the various parts of the downtown campus trying to register for classes, trying to figure out how much their tuition bill was going to be, and then more importantly, how they were going to pay that. And so all of those things were laid out as agendas that we wanted to correct or we needed to address as part of the plan. And so then we move on to sort of student housing. One of the more challenging issues that we were dealing with is that 73% of our housing space is over 25 years old, and so we needed to do some significant refreshing or replacement. And 78% of our beds were actually in 73% of that space. So, the majority of our housing was clearly at the end of its useful life. We also had about $155 million worth of deferred maintenance. And so we went about creating a student housing master plan to do that. The other sort of challenge that we face is that, the state of West Virginia is one of the few states that does not provide any capital money to support new construction or to renovate or update the campus. And so what we have to be very careful with is when we issue debt, especially on auxiliary operations, that it doesn't have a negative impact on our balance sheet, because we want to save that borrowing capacity to the extent that we can for our academic facilities. And so we developed what was I think a little bit of an innovative plan at the time, that we would construct 2,700 new beds that would not require the university to guarantee any revenues or not to guarantee any rooms. And we would also own those facilities during their useful life, and then when their useful life is over, we'll have complete control of all the property and anything that resides on those improvements at that time as well. We also wanted to participate in the margin, if you will, in sharing any profits that might flow off of those student housing projects, because we wanted to take those dollars and put them back into helping us renovate our existing housing as compared to having to borrow additional money. And so we laid out a complete strategy to deal with student housing. And so here we are today, and I want to share with you some of the projects that we've completed and some of the projects that we continue to explore. What's up on your screen today is the law school addition. It was about a $14 million addition. There's a $18 million renovation of existing space going on, and that should be completed in about a year. For those of you who are in the hospital parking lot or going to a football game, the law school sits on the top of the hill, and it's actually a very impressive view from the parking lot. The next slide includes CPAS and our new Student Health and Wellness building. CPAS was about $17 million. The Student Health and Wellness building was about 16.4, and there's about 100,000 square feet of space in the consolidation of the the two buildings. This is our new art museum. It's about 9.4 million, somewhere between 10 and 12,000 square feet. I would encourage you to go visit. It has a beautiful mural in the building. It's a great place to go and appreciate some of the university's art, as well as there will be traveling shows and other events taking place in this building. This is includes actually two buildings. One is our new greenhouse. Believe it or not, the greenhouse cost us $10 million. I might add, it's a very nice greenhouse. It's a very nice greenhouse. And then we also have the advanced engineering building for $44 million. We also spent about $3.7 million renovating the EVANSDALE Library. It's one of the most popular places on the EVANSDALE campus right now. And for those of you who have not been in the EVANSDALE Library, I would encourage you to go. You can also get a cup of coffee. You can buy a bagel. There's other food options, as well as a nice place to go relax. It's a place where students can study in small rooms, or they can relax. A lot of connectivity options. And most of the books have now been moved to the book depository, and so there's lots of sort of student space in the building. The other pictures represents the National Coal and Energy Research Building. We spent about $4.7 million putting in additional classrooms, as well as chemistry and I think physics lab and biology labs. This was designed so students who are on the EVANSDALE campus wouldn't have to be going back and forth between the two campuses and creating more congestion. So we felt it was a good idea to try to keep students out there, keep students that are freshmen specifically that are on the EVANSDALE campus and not moving them back and forth. And so I appreciate the faculty's willingness to move as compared to moving the students around. And so the next slides deals with our student housing projects. Again, most of these have been constructed through private-public partnerships. The first one is College Park. We built 567 beds. It's just a beautiful facility. I would encourage you to go check it out. University Place has 960 beds. It also is the home of Sheets, which is the first demonstration project for the Sheets company, in which they do not sell gasoline, and they also have grocery options. And so you can go buy chicken, you can go buy vegetables, and all their regular MTO kind of. I sound like a salesman for Sheets at the moment, don't I? So I would encourage you to go. Insomnia cookies, for those of you who really like warm cookies, they're just unbelievably good. And there's burgers and dogs, there's a pizza place, there's a recreation place, there's more to come in University Place. And the University Avenue is open, at 3rd Street, and so I'm very pleased that's finally done. And then this is our last project, and it's University Park. It includes 408 apartments, 902 residence halls. It has an IHOP, it has an anytime fitness, and is absolutely another one of those projects where we cleaned up a pretty seedy part of Morgantown and created something that's breathtakingly gorgeous. Matter of fact, I've tried to convince my wife to move in, but I have not been able to achieve that yet. And then the President Guy was just talking about the new baseball park, and so here's a picture of the ballpark. It's about $24.3 million. Again, we have no money involved in this park directly. So this is a great community asset. It's a great asset for West Virginia University. So the new ag building is under construction. Actually, this is an old picture. We're probably about a year out. The ag building is about a $100 million transaction or construction project, I should say. And it's coming along very nicely, and we anticipate it being open in about a year. So this shows the law school addition, but we're also in the midst of a renovation project. And this is our new EVANSDALE Crossing building. I would encourage you to actually go check out the food court on the first floor. It's kind of retro, edgy. The food's great. Has anyone been to EVANSDALE Crossing yet? What'd you think? Yeah. So the coffee shop, I think, opened today, Octane. And so you'll be able to get coffee, juice, and wine and beer after 5. And so that's something we're very excited about. And then we have a parking garage being constructed in Sunnyside across from University Park. It is open. It's about 500 spaces, and so if anyone's looking for a place to park and would like to get a permit, call the parking office. And so we also wanted to work on signage, and I think we've done a nice job laying out the 3 entrances to the campus, and so it's been very difficult to tell people how to maneuver around campus because of those 3 entrances. And so we've got some nice signs up. We've got some nice wayfinding signs once you get on campus so that you can find the various buildings. We actually think they look pretty nice. I don't know, what do you guys, do you like the signage on the EVANSDALE campus? Oh, cool. All right, good. There's 1 vote. That's good. That's a start. And we're also in the midst of modernizing the PRT, which is about a $70 million adventure, and we're in phase 2. And so very pleased with the improvements and the uptime with the PRT to date, and it will only get better as we continue to make significant investments. And so I will pause and ask if there's any questions. Oh, not hearing any. Hi, Virginia.
Virginia Clyde's College of Business and Economics. I had a question regarding, there's an unusual bond restriction that the state of West Virginia has with respect to how we fund things, and I've never really understood that. And lots of wonderful projects. I've been to the ball field. I went to the Marshall game about a month ago, and it was absolutely wonderful. And I know that's public-private funding, but some of the earlier projects that are floated by bonds, what is the unusual bond restriction that the state of West Virginia has, and how does that impact future fundraising for us with respect to building?
Well, the only thing that's unusual about the state is their lack of investment in capital improvements. For whatever reason, the state of West Virginia does not provide the higher education system, WVU, with an ongoing appropriation to maintain or to build new facilities.
Maintain and build?
Maintain and build.
So everything that we do for capital improvements, we must do ourselves?
We must do whatever we do ourselves. Now, we have a great bond rating, and we have capacity to borrow money, but we've got to be cognizant of the balance sheet in regards to those projects that are not directly tied to the academic mission. because we've got to preserve some of that when we want to do something else on the academic side.
As compared to, say, another state of Pennsylvania or Ohio, would the state then?
Yeah, in most places the
bonds?
state would actually provide an appropriation, or they would participate in some kind of revenue bond transaction to construct and build facilities.
And has this big effort for building constrained us in the future in some way, or do you feel that we're still open to a lot of flexibility going forward for our building projects?
No, I mean, our debt service obligation as a percent of revenue is around 3 to 4%, and so we're not over leveraged, but we've got to be cognizant of the balance sheet.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Ann LaFosso, College of Law. That was very impressive, all of those new buildings and those under construction. And I was just wondering if there was like a master map or plan online, because I would actually like to visit some of those buildings.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a map. If you go to the Facilities and Service website, there's information about the various construction projects and where they're located and anything else you might want to know.
Including the ones that are already, I don't know if anyone can hear me, but including the ones that are already done?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Matter of fact, I could arrange a tour if you'd like a guided tour. Send me an email. Anybody else like to have a guided tour? I'd be happy to take you. Yeah. Okay, send me an email. Be happy to arrange something. Well, thank you. It's a pleasure being here. Appreciate an opportunity to come talk about the capital plan.
So thank you, Novel. I believe I'm next up on the agenda. Just a quick note to our regional campuses. It appears that you can hear me, but I can't hear you, or we can't hear you in the hall here. So if you have questions, please, I believe that Julie Black, our technical person, can hear you, and she will relay any questions that you have. Just make sure that you communicate with her. And for votes, I think we're going to have to go to the Roman method, a quo vadis, so it'll be a thumbs up for yes and a thumbs down for no. Okay? Thank you. My report. This month I've been pretty busy. I attended the WVU Center for Women's and Gender Studies, which established the Harriet E. Lyon Endowed Professorship in honor of Judith Gold Stitzel. That was a very nice ceremony, and our own Jennifer Orlikoff emceed and did a great job on that, and we had speakers from around the campus, the provost and other distinguished people, so that was very nice. If you've been following the papers, you'll see I've been quoted on a couple of issues. One of them is the emergency operations. So that came about by being contacted by the Charleston Gazette regarding what plans we had in place. So I told them I will be back with them in 2 hours and spend a very helpful 2 hours actually going through the training programs that we had on this. As a result of that, we actually, for those of you who don't know, we actually have 2 training videos that are associated with this. One is called Active Shooter, and the other one, I forget what it's called, but it's about dealing with workplace aggression, Flashpoint. Both of them actually very good, definitely worth looking at and sort of going through the course, which is graded, and you can sort of take that online. I've asked Bob Roberts to come and give a presentation to the Senate. It's going to be at the next faculty meeting, which looks like it will be a short one. So I'm thinking that maybe he could actually show the movie on Active Shooter. It's about 25 minutes long, but it really is worth seeing. So we can either do that, or we can do a sort of summary for about 10 minutes of the different things that can happen. So I'll talk to Bob Roberts about that and see which is the most effective way of doing it. But we do have planning materials, we do have training materials, and hopefully after the next meeting it'll be clear where those are and what the best route is to look at those. I visited the Blanche Lazelle Morgantown mural. which there was a discussion and presentation by Bernie Schultz and Robert Bridges at the Art Museum. If you haven't been to that facility yet, I recommend everybody goes. It really is very impressive. I think we have only 1% of our art collection on display at any given time, so it looks like we have multiple exhibitions that we can have in the future without fear of repetition. I also met with the library committee, talked with, that was hosted by or chaired by Beverly Kirby. John Cawthorn was there, gave a very complete presentation of what was happening on the library scene. You may have seen in yesterday's paper, we have the first Wikipedian in the country that was as part of the library system. And also we, for those of you who didn't take one, there are a set of cards outside on the desk out front that allow everybody at the university, student, staff and faculty, to have free access to the New York Times. So if that's a journal that you like to read, we have free access, and you have free access so long as you have a WVU email address, and that will be as good as long as you're a WVU faculty, staff or student. So I recommend that you look into that. A reminder, the research grants, which are now split into 4 areas, they will be due February the 8th. So please make sure that your constituents are aware of this. There are, these include the research and scholarship, the academic conference grants, grants for community engagement, and travel grants, and that's the second round of the travel grants, due on February the 8th, so please make sure everybody's aware of that. We continue to work on the SEE, the SEI pilot, and that will be launched this semester, and everything going well. We will have a complete changeover to the new system next semester, so we will have an update on how the pilot went and more information on that in an upcoming meeting. For those of you who know me and have seen me down the rec center, you see that I actually make pretty good use of that facility. It doesn't seem to have an awful lot of effect on my waistline, but I do try. But just as a piece of information that I got from them is that that's been open for 14 years now. It was in 2001, and they've just had their 10 millionth customer, which I think is pretty amazing. 14 years, 10 million customers. So again, if you haven't checked out the rec center, you should go and do that. We have upcoming meetings, faculty, staff, and student leadership, upcoming meetings at Potomac State and Tech this coming week, so I will report back on those at a future meeting. So with that, I conclude my report, and if there are any questions, I will be happy to address them. I thought the President was going to get up and ask me a tricky question there. So. Any questions? No? Okay, well, thank you very much. So the next item on the agenda is the Curriculum Committee report, and Karen Haynes will be substituting or stepping in for Matt Valenti, who is apparently somewhere in California on a beach. That's what I'm told, anyway.
Thank you. First, for your approval, I have the new courses report, which is Annex 1 in the agenda. If you'd like to pull that up and take a look at that. There are a number of different courses that are part of that report.
So are there any objections or points of discussion for Annex 1?
Mike Mays, Eberly College. There are 2 courses on that agenda that I would like the Senate to pull off of the action agenda and consider separately. The courses are Psych 203 and 204. They are proposed as a research methods sequence in the undergraduate psychology major that will replace an existing sequence that consists of a statistics course and a research methods course in psychology. Well, when I looked at the syllabus on the on Chem, it's pretty clear that the topics are predominantly statistics. And on that Chem new course approval form, it says, there's a checkoff box. It says, does the proposed course or course change have content that may be covered by another academic unit? They checked the no box. And that's wrong. I mean, it is going to replace a statistics course in the undergraduate statistics curriculum. Statistics should have the opportunity to work with psychology and sign off on any change like this before it's allowed to occur.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments?
Holly Montgomery Downs, Eberly College. Following our quaint customs, I'd like to recognize the Chair of Psychology, Dr. Kevin Larkin, to speak on behalf of that department.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Kevin Larkin. I'm the Chair of the Psychology Department. I appreciate the opportunity to clarify the course proposal. First, I'd like to say that respectfully dispel the statement that Dr. Mays has made that it's predominantly a statistical course. These are research methods courses that are being devised to instruct our students how to conduct and complete research projects. Both of the courses that are being considered are devised to cover both descriptive research and correlational research as well as experimental methods. Let me say that this has been a long-standing issue for us. We've been working on this issue with the statistics department over the last 10 years. And our course assessments from the ACAT test, which is a standardized test that we give to our students at the time of graduation, shows that we have systematically shown that our students score in the lowest ratings in the area of statistics, and that the amount of training that they get and the competencies they accrue have not been satisfied to us. So we addressed this in February as part of our annual assessment protocol and came up with this idea that it would be better, rather than to have a separate statistics class and a separate research design class, to actually integrate the two of them so that there would be information about research design that students accrue over this two-semester sequence, and then as they learn the research design and they put it into place with the studies that they're doing, they would then learn the appropriate statistical tool that they would need to carry out the analyses. So that is indeed what is in the proposal. Statistical literacy is a key element of psychology. It is taught in majority of psychology departments in the country. Almost all of them have a statistics requirement. About 75% of them are taught in the departments of psychology, so it's indeed a part of our quantitative aspect of our program. All of our faculty are PhD who have taken courses in statistics, and they have taken graduate level courses in statistics, completed empirical dissertations in statistics, and are competent and capable in the administration and use of that. Recent data has shown that these integrated course sequences actually are very helpful for getting the competency levels up. And that makes good sense from psychological perspective, that if you are going to learn how to use statistics, you would learn them in the context of doing a research study that actually uses that particular statistical tool. And we think that strategy is going to work very well for individuals in our department for mastering this content. So our faculty moved to move in this direction. I alerted Dr. Mays of that decision in the summer. They politely gave us their syllabi to look at and consider in evaluating our courses, and then we put this proposal together. It should be noted that the course syllabi that are before you for review do contain several course objectives, and the objectives are predominantly in the area of research design. Students do conduct research studies, they carry these out, they do course presentations, they write up research project papers as part of this. This is a key element for us in both their written and their verbal forms of communication. The only two of the 7 objectives for the first course and 2 of the 8 for the second course have statistics in mind. And when you're looking at the textbook that was selected, it's specifically chosen because of the integration of statistics and research methods. It's written by a psychologist. It's written for an integrated statistics course. So this type of course is not available on the WVU campus, so that is why we're proposing it for you. we hope that you take that into consideration and allow us to consider to move forward. It'd be good for our students, and they would benefit greatly by it.
I think with the discussion that just came up, there were a few errors. So I believe that currently the psychology department requires 1 semester of statistics. And when I look at the proposed new courses, Psych 203, 204.
Could you announce who you are again? I'm sorry.
Ken Ryan, Department of Statistics, Eberly College. So when I look at the proposed courses here, Psych 203, Psych 204, 32 weeks worth of coursework, I see 30 weeks of statistics content. Now, it is my understanding that the psychology department currently requires just Stat 201 or 211. And there's been a citing here that their students are scoring low on some achievement tests. But the required statistical coursework that's in the proposed Psych 204 would be handled by Stat 312. And so if the psych department would simply require their students to take more statistical coursework, 2 semesters, they would already have 2 courses out of 5 towards a minor, and they would have a broader exposure to people in the discipline of statistics. So I urge you, Faculty Senate, to take these courses off of Annex 1, Psych 203, Psych 204.
Are there any other comments about these 2 courses? At this point, I'm going to pull Psych 203 and 204 from the consent agenda, and we're going to go ahead and vote on the consent agenda, which is Annex 1, without those 2 courses, and then we're going to come back and revisit this as soon as we've done that. So what we're going to do is we're going to I'll ask for questions for Annex 1 that do not include Psych 203 and 204. Are there any questions on the remaining courses in Annex 1? Okay, so hearing no questions, all those in favor of approving Annex 1 as... There's a question? Well, somebody will tell me if they have questions, okay? So we haven't got to the vote on it yet, okay? So all those in favor of approving Annex 1 which does not include Psych 203 and 204, please indicate by saying aye. Those opposed say no. Potomac State, how do you vote? 1 thumb, thank you. And WVU Tech, how do you vote? 1, 2, I can't see, is it 2 or 3? Okay, 2. 2 yeses for, and 3, okay, we have 3, thank you. So, therefore, the ayes have it, and Annex 1 is approved without Psych 203 and 204. And now we will, at this point, we will revert back to the issue regarding Psych 203 and 204. So at this point, I presume there needs to be some sort of...
For it to be discussed formally, there needs to be a motion.
Yeah, exactly. So there has to be some sort of motion by somebody regarding these 2 courses.
Mike Mays, Eberly College, I would move to defer consideration of Psych 203, 204 to the next Senate meeting.
Is there a second? Okay. There is a second. Okay, so is there any discussion on this motion?
Yep, not there. I can just yell. I have 3 small children. Just to ask whether Dr. Larkin wanted to make any further comments before discussion is closed.
Sure. So the chair recognizes Dr. Larkin.
Yeah, Kevin Larkin again. I don't really have anything to add. It's all in the proposal. The proposal was vetted all the way up through. I don't believe that that it is something that we don't have any animosity with the statistics department. We don't want to get into a fighting battle with them. It's not really about that. It's about trying to get our students the best quality education, and we would like to move forward on this project and to get that process in place for our students to get a better education by integrating both their research knowledge and their statistics together. We have the resources in place to do this, and we're ready to move forward.
Yes.
Ken Ryan, Eberly College. I would just like to reiterate that some of the coursework, especially in Psych 204, is redundant with courses that the Psych department currently does not require, and it may limit their students to a broader exposure to seeing experts in the discipline of statistics and the possibility of a statistics minor. If they were to take 2 semesters of statistics, they would just be a few courses away from completing an undergraduate minor.
Ann LaFaso, College of Law. I did second this to postpone this for the next time, but I also feel like I don't know how I'm going to vote, because it seems to me it's very compelling that the statistics department wants to teach statistics. And then I'm hearing the psychology department say, well, we have very special needs that the psychology students need to have it in their context, which makes sense. But how do I evaluate that? So I would ask the parties to please bring information to show us each of those things. I think that's more about psychology than statistics, because there's not much more you can say. Statistics is saying this is what we teach, which is true. That's obviously what they teach. So this harkens back to something we did about a year or 2 ago, when I think it was one of the engineering departments wanted to teach the history of engineering, and history was very upset because that's a history of science. That's really a humanities course. And there's a whole discipline of history and science, and then we voted to let the engineering department do it, even though they were using a completely outdated book. I voted against that proposal because I was very concerned that we're teaching something in the guise of humanities, but it's not really the humanities. And so I would urge that we have the right information so that we can make an informed decision, especially on something that really could lead us to, we don't want to be uncollegial, and I would like to applaud the parties for being as collegial as possible in this particular case. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Famuri.
Parviz Famuri, engineering. So I just want to make a comment because Senator from Statistics asked Gordon Gee about the stat course. And I think I've been here for 25 years, too long. And I think this problem keep reoccurring. And I don't know about the history of engineering, but mainly statistics and math. So engineers tend to be more applied. And most of our students already are challenged with math and statistics. And I guess the discussion over the years has been that we want the math and statistics to be taught in a more applied way. Whereas, some applied math professors do it in applied way, and some they do it in theoretical way. So I'm just putting the comments that these are the things that maybe at the curriculum committee level should really reach out and do something about it, and to keep all the parties happy. It's just a comment.
Are there any other questions and comments?
Nick Bowman, Eberly College, and Communication Studies. And one thing I can speak of is I've been on these curriculum committees before, and the core question really seems to be, is it a stats class or a methods class? Right? Because I think we can probably agree that methods are pretty specific to a discipline, and it makes a lot of sense that you would keep that in-house. And so that might need to be something that's clarified. That could be, it seems to me, the core of the debate, right? Is this a methods class, or we're teaching experimental methods, and we're teaching how to interpret, case control designs, or is this really meant to be 30 hours of ANOVA regression modeling, path modeling? And that's probably key to this debate, is the psychologist trying to train future psychologists to get ready for capstone and get ready for grad school, or is it just simply learning how to run these numbers? Because that seems to be a very big difference between it being a stats class and a methods class that probably should be clarified at all levels to help out the debate.
Sorry, last time, Ken Ryan, Eberly College. I think some excellent points were just made. And so in terms of having a research methods course, this would potentially make a lot of sense at the 300 or 400 level, but not at the 200 level where students need foundation. And the courses under proposal here, Site 2 or 3, 204, are at a real, or should be at a foundational level. And from the looks of the syllabi, they're focused more on basic statistical methods.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? No? Okay, so we have a motion on the table which is to defer these two courses. And we should vote on that.
To defer discussion up to the next meeting, I think that was the motion.
Yeah, so again, we can do that. We can do that since that's the motion. That means that we'll come back and have the same discussions next time, maybe. Or is there another way that we can deal with this? So I think we need to go ahead and vote on this, but
we need to vote on it.
yeah, so we will go ahead and vote on it, but we're basically voting on it being deferred to the next Senate meeting. Okay? So with that, all those in favor of deferring these two courses to the next Senate meeting, or discussion of these two courses to the next Senate meeting, please agree by saying aye. Aye. And those against say no. Okay. At least in Morgantown, the ayes have it. Potomac State, how do you vote? One aye. And WVU Tech, how do you vote? 1, 2, and I can't. It's either 2 or 3. 2. Okay. So I think the ayes have it, and those two courses are deferred. So we're now back on the agenda, and yes? Sorry? Okay. So at this point, I would sort of direct the curriculum committee maybe to re-examine, and if you can liaise with both parties and see if we can come up with a compromise, then that would be greatly appreciated.
And that is typically what we do when these issues arise. So
okay.
I will see that that's taken care of.
Okay, appreciate it. So we'll go to the next item on the agenda.
All right. We'll move on to Appendix 2 that is presented for your approval, and these are course changes.
So are there any questions or points of discussion on Annex 2, the course change report? And Tech and Tech and Potomac State, if you have questions, please let Julie Blank know. But I'm not seeing a hand appear from the side there, so we're good, I think. Okay? So with that, all those in favor of approving Annex 2, please say aye. Those opposed say no. Potomac State, how do you vote? 1 aye. And WVU Tech, how do you vote? 2 ayes. Okay, so the ayes have it. Annex 2 is accepted. Is approved, rather.
Next, we have Appendix 3, which is also for your approval, and it is a major in global supply chain management.
So are there any objections or points of discussion for Annex 3? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of approving Annex 3, please say aye. Those opposed say no. Potomac State, how do you vote? One aye. And WVU Tech, how do you vote? Seeing two ayes. So the ayes have it. Annex 3 is approved. 3? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm having difficulty figuring out whether there's 2 or 3 at WVU Tech, but I guess it was 3. And the last item?
And last, we have for your information the alterations report. It includes minor changes in minors this time. That's a new inclusion. That's the first item on the first page. And then also minor changes in courses.
Okay, so are there any objections or points of discussions for Annex 4? There's a question or a point of discussion from WVU Tech. So can you maybe relay that to us?
No, quite relay that to us.
No?
No.
Okay. Okay. All right. So since there are no objections, Annex 4 is filed. So thank you. And next on the agenda is Dr. David Hauser with the General Education Oversight Committee report.
Just very briefly, presented just for information, we added a few courses to the GEF master lists. I think there were GECs that came through late, and they're just being translated over to the GEF.
Okay. So
short and sweet.
Short and sweet. That's the way we like it. So are there any questions, points of objection, points of discussion for Annex 5? Hearing none, Annex 5 is filed. Thank you. So next we have Dr. Ann Chester, finally. She's been waiting very patiently, who's going to give us an update from the health sciences area. Thanks.
Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be here. I have the honor to talk about a program that has been born and raised here in West Virginia, 21 years. It's called the Health Sciences and Technology Academy, and it's in partnership with 14 different parts of the state. And it's on pre-K. I mean, it's K-12 education, and you're probably going to wonder, okay, now how does that relate to me? And I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to tell you how it relates to you. Health Sciences and Technology, we call it HISTA for short, has a really nice composition of kids. These are kids that are in the 9th through the 12th grade that don't ordinarily go to college. They are from the rural regions of West Virginia. 30% of them are African American. 63% of them have families who don't have enough money to send these students to college if they should want to go. And 74% of them are the first in their families to even consider college. And 83% of them are rural. And 67% of them are female. And they're all going somewhere between the 9th and the 12th grade. And here's where they come from. All the regions that are in color are where the HISTA clubs are. We have between 750 and 800 at any one time. And they are in after-school clubs. It's set up on the 4-H model. A long time ago, we thought that we could take the 4-H model and make it into a research foundation for these kids. And it's run by about 60 to 70 teachers. And we have 14 regional field site coordinators who make sure everything runs right. And then we have 4 people called community research associates that know science, know statistics. I know we've been talking about statistics today. And can translate between students and researchers. And keep that in mind. The community research associates is where I'm going to be focusing a little bit more attention later on. But I wanted you to see where we are in the state. So when you're thinking about your own research, you can think about reaching into underserved populations. And here's where some opportunities exist. So these kids start in the 9th grade and they go through this program all through high school. And if they come out successfully, having gone to at least 2 summer camps, having done a research project every single year, and they successfully present these in symposia every single year, then they get a college tuition and fee waiver all the way through medical school, dental school, pharmacy school, nursing school, the STEM major degrees all across West Virginia, not just here, but everywhere. And this is a piece that makes the difference. These kids do well in college. It's amazing what happens when you release the financial burden from these kids. These are the kids that wouldn't go to college, remember. So how do we get them ready for college? Because they come from areas that don't have necessarily the role models. Well, it is a multi-pronged attack. It's coming from all sides. It's coming from their teachers. It's coming from their peers. They mentor each other. It's coming from the community research associates. It's coming from their community leaders, because each one of these regions is run by a volunteer local board that actually is the one that selects the kids that get in the program. In other words, there's nobody here selecting them. They are selected by their communities and nurtured by their communities in partnership with people not just at WVU but across the state. And so all eyes are on the kid from the 9th through the 12th grade. And the ones that rise to the top, and over 60% of them do, get better ACT grades, scores. 99% of those kids go to college and they stay in West Virginia. 92% of those kids graduate from college. So this is the crew that we should be really recruiting, because they're going to improve our retention. So 92% of these kids, once they get in college, stay in college. That's an amazing statistic right there. So we have 2,200 of these so far that have made it out of high school, and there are 91% of them are staying in West Virginia. So we are cultivating the power of West Virginia here through this program. And so the economic value is $30,000 a year more for the kid over their highest earning parent. And that was done by the College B&E, that study. So I want to go back to the Community Research Associates, and this is where I really was hoping to generate some interest in folks who might want to do some research that reaches into underserved populations in conjunction with these kids. Because every single kid has to do a science project every single year. Some of them are really, really motivated. And of course, some of them may not be so motivated. So, you know, it is not necessarily the rainbow road if you think you're going to get the really easy ride. No, it is nurturing kids. It is like your own kids. You've got to nurture them. But the outcome is, in some of these folks that we have partnered with, like we have partnerships with Dartmouth, with University of Pennsylvania, University of Pittsburgh, I know it's a bad word, but anyway, we do. And also with Marshall and a number of other institutions around the country. But the most interesting ones are the ones with ourselves. So the CRAs are the partner with the scientists wherever they are. The CRA is the person who knows how to talk between the scientist and the students. They also are able to bring the teachers along and talk to the community in a language that it's sometimes difficult to walk into some of these communities looking the way that we do. We just don't fit. And if you're doing research in these areas, you need to be able to fit in order to nurture the kids and to get what you need. So the CRAs do all this, plus they act as the IRB facilitator. And I know that is something that might be helpful to a number of folks. It sure is for me. So they give the community a voice, they give the researcher a voice, and they help the partnership between the scientist and the student's work. So what has this done? This generates a whole new workforce through high school students. These students can be vectors of change right as you're teaching them what it is that you're doing, and they can conduct research in the most inaccessible communities. It works really well for public health, for instance, but it also works for surveying in ginseng populations or in other types of things that work with trying to get information from communities around West Virginia. And what's really neat about this is unique to West Virginia. We have grown it ourselves. So I wanted to give you one quick example of how it works, just to give you an idea of how powerful it is. Last year, we had a summer camp that brought 120 kids to campus, and we got them interested in being their own first patient. We're trying to get these kids into healthcare, so if they're their own first patient, they'll get to see how difficult it is to control patients' behavior. So we screened them all, meaning we took blood samples, and they knew what their cholesterol was, what their BMI was, what their triglycerides were, what their sugar was, the H1, whatever it is. Thank you. And we also screened them for where they stood in their ability to see themselves as a scientist, and also their goal orientation, their relationship to the community. So there are psychometric measures, there are social measures, and biometric measures. And then we set them up in Facebook groups where they were in their own little secret cohorts. And then they mentored each other through having people from, or actually students from WVU being the head mentor, and they would speak to each other on these secret Facebook groups, and they would nurture each other towards their own wellness goals. Their wellness goals divided up between nutrition and exercise, and there was a group that was large enough to look at weight loss. This group of kids is very obese. So those were the big three goals, and then there were other goals as well, and that was a very small part. But the neat thing about it is that these kids actually lowered their BMI if they had a BMI goal to lower. And so that was about 20-some kids. They significantly lowered BMI. That's hard to do. And that was done by just having each other as sort of a mentor. The reason we know that they lowered the BMI is because we bused as many as we could back to WVU in March and did the whole measurement all over again. So we have pre and post measurements. So significantly lowering BMI, we significantly lowered the HbA1c for the whole group, and we had other significant differences too. So the bottom line is that these kids have a lot of power, not only to influence themselves, but they influence their community at the same time. So they're translating information right directly to the community and improving the literacy of the community at the same time. So it's a vehicle that I wanted to spread around the university as a potential infrastructure for you to use and for you to spread to your colleagues as a potential research idea. And so that, I'll stop there and open the floor for questions. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Anne. So next on the agenda is the Advisory Council of Faculty report by Dr. Nutter.
Thank you, sir. Roy Nutter, Stettler College of Engineering Mineral Resources. Promised you last time that ACF would meet. They did. October 22nd in Logan with the Community Technical Council. Some interesting things from the Technical Council first. They did a search for a new chancellor for the two-year schools, and they met in executive session and selected someone who was apparently not in the running. The interim chancellor is now the chancellor. So Chancellor Susan Tucker is now chancellor of the two-year schools. Another thing that seems to be going on, we talked about the transfer law, the transferring courses to four-year schools. And if you recall, we wrote a letter as a WVU, the Senate and administration, and with a number of comments. And one of the things about transfer was the 70% rule. If a course from any other school has 70% of the objectives that it will transfer and count state law. We protested that. It went to the community council as it was with no changes and was passed. It's now in the 2-year schools. It is on the 4-year HEPC agenda for November 20th. There are no changes. They weren't listening. One of the things that's happening is Vice Chancellor Corey Dennison put together a committee to look at the math courses. Mike Mays is on that committee, and I would like him to report to you about what's going on with math. Math will probably be the first thing that's done. And then, as I understand it, they're looking next at the sciences. There's some argument about that. Mike maybe can help us. I think Jennifer was at that meeting as well. And then we'll follow with the, what do we call it, humanities, I guess. Mike, would you please update us?
HEPC is sort of in a hard position. They are charged with implementing the legislative priority as it's written. So they're taking it as what they have to do. And this 70% rule is what we were charged to do. There was a committee of math faculty from around the state, and we were looking at courses that would be probably most likely to be transferred. So college algebra, calculus, pre-calculus, courses that would probably exist at lots of different schools. It's important. This has been in place for a long time. I think there was the other public schools in West Virginia had something in place to allow for transfers, but this is much bigger. It's public or private institutions, and it's institutions that have regional or national or programmatic accreditation. So, like for private schools, they don't necessarily aiming for a baccalaureate degree. It's just if there's a course that has the title, then it's something that can be presented for transfer, and it's the burden of proof for the institutions to, if they're going to deny credit, they have to have a reason why it's denied. It can't be just, well, it doesn't match what we have. That's not good enough. So we were going through, and the best we were able to do to make something rational out of it is if it has to be 70%, maybe we could organize the syllabus of the math course so that there is a core list of topics that would be 70%, and 70% means 100% of 70%, and then there are some extra topics like pick and choose kind of a thing so that there could be some leeway, but there has to be certain things covered for there to be any hope to have it transfer. Another thing we considered was maybe we could have some kind of a tier for transfer so that there would be transfer for credit towards graduation and transfer for a prerequisite course, and we could draw a distinction. It's not clear that we'll be able to do that. Again, HEPC's hands may be tied with the way the legislation is written. All I know directly about is what we were doing in the math group, but there were some comments about when they tried to get things rolling, a similar committee for sciences, that the people on that committee balked because biologists felt they had no real sense of what appropriate criteria would be for chemistry or physics. And they may end up having to expand that committee or have separate committees for each of the areas to try to make sense of the policy.
In the interest of time, I will not ask for questions. PEIA is the third thing that we all need to be paying attention to, and I'm not sure we're paying enough attention, but I guess my feel about the PEIA issues are that there's not much we can do about it. Did anybody actually attend the Morgantown one? Jennifer did. Would either of you like to update us quickly on that?
Sure. I mean, it was a bit depressing, really, because it's, you know, the PEIA board were basically asking for input on a number of issues. One of them was the issue regarding whether the full family income should be included in the assessment. They were talking about different tier structures, whether it should be 4 tiers or 6 tiers or 9 tiers, I think. I can't remember if there were any other... Oh yeah, they went through all the sort of changes in deductibles, which are very large. The big issue here is that there's no additional funding for the program PEIA. The state law says there's an 80-20 distribution, so the state pays 80, the employee pays 20. We're at that limit. So if the state doesn't put any more money in, they cannot increase the employee's contribution, and therefore the only way that they can balance the budget is to basically, you know, change out-of-pocket expenses, the deductibles, the drug reimbursement, etc., etc. So, you know, they're in a very difficult position because they're tasked to basically balance the budget. They're not tasked to, you know, make comment about whether this is a good or bad thing to do, which unfortunately these meetings end up by having a sort of litany of you know, case studies by people who say, you know, how, you know, it's going to be impossible or very difficult for them to survive, which of course is true, but it doesn't really, you know, help the issue. So there were a lot of comments, but basically, as Roy said, I mean, at this point, the situation is, you know, how can we, I think, change the system rather than, you know, make comment about what the proposals are. I mean, there's only so many ways you can actually solve this problem within the budget constraints.
There's I believe there's another week or two of allowing open comments. The slides from their presentation are on their website. Yep. I did look through them last night. Those of you who are interested might want to do that. It's not good news, I can tell you that.
And they do ask for like two specific, they ask for whether the total family income should be considered and what tier system. So they are looking for answers to those specific questions. So it's probably worth you while going to the website and actually putting in your vote on those. But that's about all I had.
All right, I got 2 more items, and neither of them are really good news. Budget, state budget. President Gee, gosh, why did I get him senator? Mentioned some of it in the meeting with the 2-year councils. Secretary Keith Burdett, who is one of the wheels in Charleston right now, said that state budget, and he went on to talk about the budget. I believe he's Secretary of Commerce, so he should probably know. We did the 4% take back. That's been done. He says that by May we could be looking at a 10% cutback, and probably will be. He noted that in his department at the Capitol that he was eliminating positions to reduce the amount of funds they require. The really negative part of it is that at the end of that 10%, that will be our base budget for next year's planning. The only other thing that happened was there was a lot of comment about WVU Beckley. Other than saying there was a lot of comment, I guess there's not much else I could say about that. Sir Chair, I am done.
Okay, so no one can accuse you of being a Pollyanna, right? So.
I could go on for hours.
Are there any questions for Roy? Hearing none, let's move on to the next agenda item since the time is running a little short. So, Dr. Griffith, please give us your Board of Governors report.
Bob Griffith from the WVU School of Pharmacy. Parts of the Board of Governors report have already been given by President Gee, and Narvel and others echoed what Roy just said about the state budget not only being bad but getting worse, and anticipating an additional budget cut. We were dealing very nicely with the 4% budget cut compared to some of the other state institutions. We're in really good shape compared to them with the 4% budget cut. But if they smack us with another up to 10% budget cut, that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt a lot, and we don't know what we're going to do yet. In turn, we had updates on the capital projects, more or less, with Narvel presented to the board what he just gave you guys. All the capital projects, the development. We had a report from the classified staff. Each constituency on the board, the students, the faculty, and the classified staff have a presentation each year. This was the turn of the classified staff. And it's always interesting because they usually bring on people that, as they say, most people think of classified staff and are thinking secretaries and janitors and so on, but they bring in people like we had the state for the West Virginia's only, WVU's only forester, who's in charge of all the various forests that we have, and we've got more than I thought we had. And we've made, in his tenure, which was a long, $2.8 million in timber sales, which every bit helps. Probably the most interesting thing that we generally deal with the faculty relative to moving tech to Beckley. And we've known for a long time, most of the overwhelming majority of the faculty at Tech are all in favor of picking up and moving to Beckley tomorrow if they can, in part because very few of them actually live in Montgomery. They live either in Franklin or in a suburb of Charleston and commute into Montgomery. And they're just as happy to drive to Beckley as into Montgomery. The classified staff, a lot of them live in Montgomery, and the report was that about 50% of them were very happy to move to Beckley for Tech to go. The other 50%, while they recognize that's the only thing that's likely to save Tech, they live in Montgomery. Some of them even walk to work, and they're not going to walk to Beckley. They were all promised if they wanted a job at Beckley, they could have one. But that commute is a real concern for those who live in Montgomery. Like I said, some of the people were saying they actually walk to work. Well, they're not going to walk to Beckley. Fortunately, President Gee, we can't talk about it yet until it's has some plans for helping Montgomery and presumably using the facilities there at Tech, and I think that would be able to help some of the classified staff. The approvals that we did, pretty limited. The board approved a redevelopment plan for the Reedsville farm. I didn't know we had a Reedsville farm. Based on a private gift, a $6,700,000 gift from the Hazel Ruby McQueen Charitable Trust, which will provide for a huge upgrade to the Reedsville farm, focused mainly on the equestrian program that we have. We approved a tuition increase for Tech's aviation management program, and we approved the HEP's compact report, which CB addressed, which was 100 and some pages of stuff that CB very nicely summarized. That concludes my report. The board will meet again December, I think, 6th, graduation day.
Thanks, Bob. Any questions for Bob? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next up on the agenda is either C.B. Wilson or Michael Ibrahim. I don't know. I think C.B.'s going to take the stand. So he's going to talk about some changes to the electronic faculty handbook. Thank you.
Okay, in preface, I should mention that some years ago, the Senate Executive Committee and I had developed a protocol whereby we could make changes to the electronic handbook with the approval of the Senate Executive Committee. And what you have as the annex today simply represents a number of points that were already up on the Provost's website, and we simply have added them into the format of the electronic handbook. If those of you that don't know Michael Abraham, Michael, why don't you wave or stand up or something? Michael actually did the preparation for this, and so at this point, if you have any questions, one of us will be glad to try to give you an answer.
Are there any questions for CB or Michael? Okay, hearing none. Okay. We're good. Okay. So hearing none, this was Annex 6. Annex 6 is filed. Thank you. Thanks, CB. So I appreciate your patience. I know this has been a long meeting, but we still have more to go. So at this point, we're going to go into executive session. So the chair seeks to move that the Faculty Senate meeting resolve itself into executive session according to West Virginia Code Chapter 6, Article 9A, Section 4, subsection 10, which actually says to avoid the premature disclosure of honorary degree awards. So do I have a motion? Second? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. So at this point, I would ask everybody who is not a senator, other than CB, who has to stay, would they please leave the room? You're welcome to come back, although with any luck, when we come back, it's going to be a very brief meeting, so maybe this will be a good time for you to head off home.